Hello friends, as expected, India has struck back to avenge the Pahalgam massacre. The armed forces launched Operation Sindoor on May 7, 2025. The name has a symbolic significance. Sindoor or vermillion mark is worn by married Hindu women. It is also worn by the warriors on their forehead. The operation targeted terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir or POJK. So, what are Operation Sindoor's broader implications? Would it help address India's strategic objectives? What could be its potential economic, geostrategic, and geopolitical consequences? Is an all out war a possibility? The primary purpose of Operation Sindoor was to neutralize terrorist infrastructure, which was responsible for planning and executing the Pahalgam type attacks against India. The Indian Ministry of Defense identified 9 terror camps across Pakistan and POJK linked to groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Hizbul Mujahideen as targets. These groups were implicated in the April 22 brutal massacre of predominantly Hindu tourists, including newlyweds, in a brutal massacre that evoked widespread outrage in India. There was one a Christian also and a Muslim also who died. The Muslim was a local who tried to save the Hindu tourists. The operation aimed to disrupt the operational capabilities of terrorist organizations and signal a zero tolerance policy towards cross-border terrorism. The operation is a direct response to the loss of civilian lives. It resonates due to the cultural symbolism of targeting newly married men as highlighted by the viral image of Himanshi Narwal, a widow of Navy Lieutenant Vinay Narwal. Operation Sindoor underscores India's commitment to holding perpetrators accountable, reinforcing its military and political resolve against Pakistan-backed terrorism. Operation Sindoor was designed to avoid targeting Pakistani military facilities, emphasizing restraint to prevent broader conflict while addressing terrorism. Operation Sindoor was a joint operation by the Indian Army, Navy and Air Force. It used advanced precision weapons to ensure accuracy and minimize collateral damage. Probably, air-to-ground missiles and guided bombs were used to target the terror camps. These systems, possibly delivered by the Indian Air Force Rafale or Sukhoi Su-30 Mk-1, ensured high accuracy. The operation involved coordinated land and sea-based assets. Probably naval platforms were used for launching BrahMos cruise missiles. Advanced surveillance, satellite imagery and signals intelligence guided the strikes. Unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs and loitering munitions such as the Harop drones may have been deployed for real-time targeting. The absence of strikes on Pakistani military facilities indicates the use of standoff weapons launched from Indian airspace, reducing the risk of direct confrontation. The operation showcased India's technological advancements in precision warfare, aligning with its modernization efforts to counter asymmetric threats from Pakistan. The Operation Sindoor struck 9 terror sites including JEN's stronghold in Bahawalpur and LET's base in Muridke. There are reports of deaths of at least 70 terrorists and injuries to 60 others. The strikes targeted key infrastructure in Kotli, Muzaffarabad, Muridke and Faisalabad, disrupting planning and logistic hubs of the terrorists. Pakistan's changing strategies to conceal terror camps were countered through extensive intelligence, suggesting a setback for these groups. The operation reinforced India's capability to strike deep into Pakistani territory while maintaining a non-escalatory stance. This certainly enhances deterrence. Pakistan has claimed civilian casualties, including 3 deaths and alleged strikes on mosques, which India has denied. These claims could fuel anti-India sentiment and complicate India's narrative internationally. Additionally, the long-term impact on terror groups depends on their ability to reconstitute, which Pakistan's support could facilitate. While Operation Sindoor achieved its immediate objectives, its long-term effectiveness hinges on sustained diplomatic and military pressure to prevent terror groups from regrouping. Apart from the expected condemnation, Pakistan has mobilized its forces. It has violated the ceasefire along the line of control, shelling Indian positions in Poonch and Rajouri. The rhetoric, including ISPR's warning of enduring grief for India, suggests potential escalation, though immediate retaliation was limited. China has not yet issued an official response but is closely monitoring developments. Given the strong China-Pakistan relationship reinforced through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC, China is likely to support Pakistan diplomatically. But it will also urge restraint to protect its economic investments. Beijing's silence may reflect strategic caution, balancing its rivalry with India and regional stability. Turkey has a history of supporting Pakistan on Kashmir, but it has not publicly commented on Operation Sindoor. Its alignment with Pakistan in forums like the Organization of Islamic Cooperation suggests potential criticism of India's actions, framing them as violations of sovereignty. Turkey's response may be tempered by its own geopolitical priorities, including relations with the European Union and NATO countries. Reactions from Muslim majority countries vary. Saudi Arabia and the UAE were briefed by Indian officials and are likely to adopt a neutral stance, giving priority to economic relations. Pakistan claimed support at the UN Security Council, but OIC has not condemned the Operation Sindoor as yet. Iran may advocate de-escalation due to its regional interests. The lack of unified criticism reflects India's growing diplomatic clout in the Muslim world. The United States was briefed by Indian officials and is monitoring developments over here. President Donald Trump expressed hope that the conflict ends very quickly. The US supports India's counterterrorism objectives but urges restraint to avoid destabilizing the region. It needs to protect its interest in Afghanistan and also counter China's growing influence, which United States considers as hegemonic. The European Union, through its member states like the UK, was briefed by India. The closed-door UNSC consultations, where envoys called for de-escalation, suggest EU concerns about regional stability. The European Union may back India's right to self-defense but emphasize dialogue to prevent escalation, aligning with its focus on global security. Russia is a traditional Indian ally. It was briefed on Operation Sindoor. Its response is supportive of India's counter-terrorism efforts given Moscow's own concerns about terrorism. Russia may advocate for de-escalation to maintain its balancing act between India and China, ensuring stability in South Asia. As a victim of the Pahalgam attack, one Nepali citizen was killed in that attack. Nepal may support India's actions, but it will avoid overt alignment due to its delicate balance with China. Bangladesh, with its strong ties to India, may privately endorse the operation but publicly call for restraint to avoid regional fallout. Sri Lanka and Maldives are wary of Chinese influence. They are likely to remain neutral, focusing on economic ties with India. Bhutan is a close Indian ally. It is expected to support India's actions. The global response reflects a cautious acknowledgement of India's counterterrorism rationale. It is tempered by calls for de-escalation to prevent a broader conflict. Operation Sindoor has immediate and potential long-term economic implications. The suspension of commercial flights in northern India and closure of educational institutions in border areas disrupt local economies. Defense spending may increase, which would certainly strain the budgets. Shelling and heightened military alertness disrupt border trade and local economies in Pakistan too. International sanctions risks, given Pakistan's efforts to evade FATF scrutiny, could worsen economic woes. The suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty by India could impact Pakistan's agriculture, escalating economic tensions. Regional trade, including SAARC initiatives, may stall. The Sindoor operation reinforces India's proactive stance against terrorism. It may deter future attacks, but the risk of Pakistani retaliation exists. The LOC, or the line of control, remains a flashpoint with ceasefire violations escalating tensions. China's investments in Pakistan via CPEC make it a stakeholder in regional stability. Operation Sindoor may prompt China to bolster Pakistan's defenses, intensifying the India-China rivalry. The United States may increase engagement to mediate, while Russia's support strengthens India's strategic position. Both powers seek to prevent a nuclear escalation. Both powers means America and Russia. Operation Sindoor enhances India's image as a decisive factor against terrorism. However, Pakistan's narrative of civilian casualties could challenge India's diplomatic efforts. The operation may strain India's relations with Pakistan's allies like Turkey, but strengthen ties with nations like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, reflecting India's growing influence in that region. The India-Pakistan-China nuclear dynamic remains a concern. Operation Sindoor's restraint avoids crossing nuclear thresholds, but escalation risks persist. The likelihood of an all-out war between India and Pakistan following Operation Sindoor is low, but cannot be described as negligible. India's avoidance of Pakistani military targets and emphasis on non-escalatory strikes reduce the immediate trigger for war. The United Nations Security Council's call for de-escalation, backed by the United States, European Union and Russia, exerts diplomatic pressure to prevent escalation. The mutual nuclear threat may encourage restraint to avoid catastrophic consequences. Pakistan's vow to retaliate, coupled with LOC shelling, suggests potential for tit-for-tat actions that could spiral out of control. Nationalist sentiments in both countries, amplified by the Pahalgam attack and Pakistan's claim of civilian deaths, could push leaders towards escalation. Small-scale conflicts could inadvertently escalate if miscommunication or miscalculation occurs. So, while an all-out war is unlikely due to global mediation and nuclear deterrence, localized skirmishes along the LOC remain probable, requiring vigilant diplomacy to prevent broader conflict. Operation Sindoor represents a bold yet calculated response to Pakistan-backed terrorism. It has achieved its immediate objectives of disrupting terror infrastructure and asserting India's resolve. The operation targeted 9 terror sites, showcasing India's military capabilities. Reactions from Pakistan, China, and Muslim countries reflect geopolitical alignments, while the United States, European Union, Russia, and India's neighbors advocate de escalation. The operation's economic, geostrategic, and geopolitical effects underscore the delicate balance in South Asia. But the Indus Waters Treaty suspension and line of control tensions are flashpoints. While an all-out war is unlikely, the risk of localized escalation necessitates diplomatic efforts to stabilize the region. Operation Sindoor, named for its cultural and warrior symbolism, reinforces India's counterterrorism stance but highlights the challenges of navigating a volatile geopolitical landscape. If you have liked my video, please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Thank you.